You don't belong here, sweetheart, not in this bank. The words cracked across the morning steps of Crown National like a gavel slamming down. Isabella Vance, branch manager, stood tall in her red dress and black blazer, heels sharp against marble, her smile polished and poisonous. It wasn't a whisper. It was public, deliberate, meant to humiliate. At the bottom of the stone staircase, Marcus Reed didn't move. 6'2", broad-shouldered, the kind of presence that drew eyes even in plain clothes. White shirt, gray jacket, black slacks simple, understated. To Isabella, that made him invisible. To everyone else pausing on the sidewalk, it made him stand out even more. The street fell into a hush. A young black man lifted his phone to record. An elderly Latina woman shook her head softly, murmuring, "Not again." A white couple in tailored suits slowed their pace, curious, skeptical. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. Isabella's heels ticked closer, every step echoing like a countdown. Millions don't walk these stairs dressed like you. Pawn shops are 2 blocks down. This is Crown National. Her manicured finger flicked toward his jacket, his worn but polished shoes. The insult shimmered under her smile. Tyler, the junior banker beside her, glanced at his tablet, forcing a frown. "He's not on the list," he said, voice a shade too quick. Behind them, Julia Chen, the young intern, pressed her lips tight. She had seen Marcus's name in the VIP system that morning, but fear kept her silent. Marcus lifted his gaze, calm, anchored. He had heard this tone before. At 24, in a hotel lobby, a clerk told him the penthouse wasn't for people like you. At 30, a loan officer called him a risk, even with more collateral than required. The same look, the same judgment. Now, 2 decades later, the same insult delivered in daylight, on stone steps beneath a sunless sky. He didn't flinch then. He wouldn't flinch now. Because this wasn't just an insult. This was the spark. Isabella's smile sharpened as she descended another step, heels ticking like a metronome of disdain. "You're wasting everyone's time. Security will be here in seconds," her words carried, echoing off the stone facade of the bank. Tyler shifted uneasily at her side. He held the tablet higher, scrolling quickly. "He's not on the VIP list," he repeated, but his voice cracked. Julia, standing just behind them, hugged a stack of files to her chest. Her lips pressed tight, like she wanted to speak but couldn't risk it. Marcus finally moved. He didn't climb the stairs. He didn't argue. He simply straightened his shoulders, his presence towering even at the base of the steps. "Run my name," he said quietly, voice calm, steady, unshakable. Isabella laughed, a sound that was sweet to the ear but bitter in intent. "Run your name? Do you know how many imposters say the same thing? You think confidence makes you credible?" She flicked her eyes at his jacket again, dismissive, calculated. From across the sidewalk, the young man filming whispered, "Damn, she really said that." His phone caught every syllable, the tension spilling into digital permanence. The elderly woman with silver hair shook her head, crossing herself softly. "Señor, don't let them break you," she muttered, though Marcus didn't need the reminder. He had seen this before. At 26, walking into a bank with more collateral than required, only to be told he was high risk. At 35, his account flagged as suspicious because his deposits didn't match the profile. Different faces, same tone, same dismissal. Isabella stepped closer now, standing high on the last stair, her shadow stretching toward him in the gray light. "You don't belong here," she repeated, her voice louder, harder. "Not in Crown National, not in my branch." Marcus didn't blink. He bent, slowly, picking up the slim folder she had slapped from his hand moments earlier. He dusted it off with one motion, then looked up at her. "Your branch?" he asked, calm, cutting like glass. "We'll see." Tyler glanced down again at the tablet, the lines of doubt deepening on his face. Julia swallowed hard. She had seen Marcus's name. She had proof. But her silence hung heavy, her fear of Isabella pressing down like weight. The street wasn't silent anymore. People had stopped to watch. Conversations had turned into whispers. A storm was gathering, not of weather, but of eyes, ears, and judgment. And in the center of it, Marcus Reed stood calm, letting Isabella burn through her arrogance. He knew storms. He had survived bigger ones. And this one was already shifting. "Security!" Isabella snapped, pulling a phone from her blazer pocket. Her voice cut through the gray morning like a siren. "We've got a fraud at the front steps. Remove him immediately." Tyler froze. His eyes darted from the tablet in his hands to Marcus, then back to Isabella. He looked like a man trapped between truth and loyalty, and truth was losing. Julia shifted uncomfortably. The files clutched to her chest, pressing tighter. She opened her mouth, then shut it again, fear caging her voice. From the sidewalk, the young black man with his phone whispered into the lens, "This is wild. Dude hasn't even raised his voice." His live stream chat buzzed, comments pouring in. A woman typed, "Classic. Black man in a suit, and they still call security." Another, "Keep recording, this matters." Isabella took 2 sharp steps down, stopping one stair above Marcus, her perfume heavy in the cool air. "Do yourself a favor and walk away before this gets ugly." Marcus raised his eyes, calm, unshaken. "Ugly already happened," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. People on the edge of the crowd leaned in to catch every word. The elderly Latina woman stepped closer, her scarf tugged by the breeze. "Señor," she said softly but clear enough for others to hear, "they don't see you, but we do." Isabella scoffed. "Are we really giving this spectacle an audience?" She gestured toward the growing crowd as if they were children misbehaving. Then, lowering her voice but sharpening every syllable, she hissed, "Men like you should know their place." The words landed like stone on marble. Conversations stopped. Even Tyler looked up from the screen, his face pale. Julia's eyes widened. The man filming muttered, "She really said that," his voice low, almost disbelieving. Marcus stood still, the wind catching the edge of his jacket. He remembered the first time someone told him those words. He was 23, standing in line for a client lounge he had every right to enter. Back then, he left. Back then, he swallowed it. "Not today." "Run my name," Marcus repeated, firmer this time. His voice hit the air like a steady drum beat. Tyler hesitated, thumbs hovering over the tablet. For a flicker of a moment, the truth was on the verge of breaking free. And then Isabella snapped, louder now. "Don't waste your time, Tyler. He doesn't exist in our system. Security will confirm it in minutes." The sky stayed dull and sunless, but the tension was burning bright. The crowd had grown, phones raised higher, whispers circling. What had started as a dismissal was becoming something bigger, something that couldn't be ignored. Marcus didn't move. He didn't argue. He simply stood anchored at the bottom step, letting the weight of her words hang heavy. Because storms reveal character, and hers was cracking in real time. The revolving glass doors at the top of the stairs hissed open. 2 uniformed security officers stepped out, their navy jackets pressed, radios clipped to their shoulders. The crowd shifted, a ripple of uneasy murmurs moving through them. Isabella straightened, relief flashing across her face like victory had already been secured. She pointed down at Marcus, her manicured finger cutting the air. "That man, he's trespassing. Remove him." One guard, a tall, square-jawed officer named Harris, descended the stairs with quick, authoritative strides. "Sir," he barked, "step away from the property. You're not authorized to be here." Marcus didn't flinch. He stood rooted, eyes calm, hands at his sides. "I'm exactly where I need to be," he said, voice even, each word deliberate. Tyler shifted behind Isabella, tablet still glowing in his hands. He whispered, barely audible, "His name. It is in the system." Julia's head snapped toward him, eyes wide, but Isabella heard nothing or pretended not to. The young man live streaming angled his phone higher. "This is it. They're really about to drag him." Comments poured across the screen. "Stay strong, brother. We see you." Exposing them in real time. Harris reached the bottom stair, squaring off with Marcus. His hand hovered near his belt. Not aggressive yet, but ready. "Last warning. Leave now or face detainment." The elderly Latina gasped, clutching her scarf. "Detained? For standing?" Her voice cracked through the tension, but Isabella overrode it, stepping forward with a smirk sharp enough to draw blood. "Do you understand?" she said to Marcus, her tone a mix of silk and venom. "You're seconds away from being cuffed in front of everyone here. Because men like you walk into banks thinking confidence is currency. It's not. Proof Island." Marcus's jaw tightened. but his expression remained steady. He bent slowly, picked up the slim folder she had knocked earlier, and tucked it under his arm. Then he met her eyes. Proof cuts both ways. Julia's breath hitched. She took half a step forward, then stopped, fear locking her in place. Tyler's knuckles whitened around the tablet. The truth was right there, glowing in his hands, but he didn't speak. The street outside the bank was no longer just a street. It had become a theater. An audience gathered, waiting to see which way justice would tilt. Phones glowed like candles in a vigil. Harris adjusted his stance, reaching out as though to grab Marcus's arm. The crowd inhaled all at once, the kind of collective breath people take when history is about to happen. And through it all, Marcus Reed didn't move. He stood as if anchored to the stone itself, a man who had weathered storms far greater than this one. The question wasn't whether he belonged. The question was how much longer Isabella could pretend he didn't. Harris's hand hovered inches from Marcus's sleeve when Marcus finally moved. Not away, not back. Just a measured shift, his hand sliding into his jacket pocket, pulling out a sleek black phone. He pressed one button. "Activate protocol," he said calmly, as if ordering coffee. A woman's voice answered instantly through the speaker, crisp and clear. "Understood. Logging this interaction." Video and audio feed engaged. The crowd stirred, heads tilted, phones angled higher. Isabella blinked, thrown for a half second, then laughed sharply, the sound bouncing off the granite. "What is this? A bluff? Recording won't save you. Policy is policy." Marcus didn't answer her. His eyes stayed steady on Harris, the guard who now hesitated, his posture faltering. That calm voice in Marcus's phone hadn't sounded like someone bluffing. It had sounded like someone in command. Julia's chest tightened. She recognized that tone, corporate, precise, official. It wasn't the voice of a lawyer for hire. It was the voice of an insider. "Sir," Harris tried again, less sure now. "I need you to—" Marcus cut him off with nothing more than a glance and a second instruction into the phone. "Timestamp this moment. Note the manager's directive." "Logged," the voice confirmed. Tyler's eyes darted down to the tablet in his hand. He whispered under his breath, "Oh, God." His thumb hovered over the screen, where the name Marcus Reed glowed with a VIP clearance tag. He swallowed, lips trembling, but said nothing. The young man streaming on the sidewalk spoke into his phone with urgency now. "He's documenting everything. She doesn't even know what's coming." Isabella's jaw tightened, her flawless composure thinning. She stepped closer, lowering her voice into a venomous whisper meant only for Marcus. "You think this scares me? You think a phone makes you powerful?" Marcus's reply was almost too soft to catch, but the crowd leaned in and heard it anyway. Number truth does. The air shifted. It was subtle but undeniable. The crowd was no longer just watching, they were aligning. You could see it in the way shoulders squared, in the way phones steadied. Julia finally exhaled, her voice breaking free in a whisper that carried further than she intended. "His name's in the system." Tyler's head snapped toward her, panic flooding his face. Isabella spun, eyes blazing. "What did you just say?" Julia froze, wide-eyed, caught between fear and conscience. And at the base of the stairs, Marcus remained still, his phone held loosely at his side, his silence louder than any argument. The storm had shifted. For the first time, Isabella wasn't steering it. Isabella's heels struck hard against the stone as she closed the distance to Julia, her red dress flaring with each step. "Say that again," she demanded, voice cutting sharp enough to sting. Julia froze, clutching the files to her chest like armor. The crowd murmured, the weight of silence pressing down until a man near the curb called out. We all heard her. Phones lifted higher, catching every angle. Isabella's smile flickered controlled, then gone. "Enough of this," she snapped, whipping back toward Marcus. "Security. Remove him now." But Harris hesitated. His gaze flicked between Marcus, still calm with his phone at his side, and the sea of recording eyes. The second guard shifted uncomfortably behind him, uncertainty spreading like cracks in marble. Marcus finally raised his voice, not loud but resonant. "Before you lay a hand on me, ask yourself, whose orders are you really following?" The words landed heavy. Harris's shoulders stiffened. He didn't move forward. Isabella scoffed, her tone turning venomous. "Orders? Don't flatter yourself. You're just another man pretending to belong in places far above him." She stepped down until she was eye level with Marcus, her perfume laced with malice. "Men like you should know when to disappear." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The young man live streaming whispered into his phone, "She really said it." Out loud, on record. His chat exploded with outrage. "Unbelievable. This is racism live." "She's done." Marcus didn't flinch. He looked at her, steady, unshaken. "The only thing disappearing today," he said, voice like stone, "is the lie you're standing on." Julia's throat tightened. She couldn't stay silent. "His name is there," she blurted suddenly, louder this time. "Marcus Reed, VIP access. I saw it this morning." The crowd erupted. Whispers turned into voices, disbelief mixing with anger. The elderly Latina woman pointed her finger toward Isabella. "She's lying. We all know it now." Tyler's face drained of color. He fumbled with the tablet, the glowing screen reflecting guilt across his features. Isabella spun toward him, her voice sharp as a blade. "Don't you dare." But it was too late. The balance had shifted. The crowd was no longer passive. They were witnesses active, alert, unwilling to look away. And Marcus, standing still at the bottom step, let the silence stretch. Not weakness, not submission, control. For the first time, Isabella wasn't just losing the crowd. She was losing the ground beneath her heels. Isabella's composure finally cracked. Her smile was gone, replaced by a mask of fury polished with arrogance. She strode the last step down until she was face to face with Marcus, their eyes level, her heels clicking to a final stop. "You think silence makes you strong?" she hissed. "You think standing there like a statue proves anything?" Her hand shot out suddenly, striking the folder tucked under his arm. Papers fluttered to the ground, scattering across the stone steps. Gasps erupted. Phones zoomed in. The crowd edged closer, the atmosphere now charged like a storm about to break. Marcus bent slowly, gathering the papers one by one. His movements deliberate, unhurried, as if even humiliation couldn't disturb his calm. When he straightened, his gaze locked on Isabella, steady as steel. "You just crossed the line," he said, his voice carrying into the gray air. Isabella laughed a brittle sound, desperate to mask the tremor in her control. "Cross the line? You're standing on the wrong side of it. Security." She snapped her fingers, pointing at Marcus like he was an intruder. "Cuff him! Right here! Right now!" Harris froze, caught in the web of eyes recording from every angle. His partner shifted, uncomfortable. Neither moved. "Do it!" Isabella barked, stepping closer to Marcus again. Her hand rose, fingers brushing his shoulder as if to shove him back down the stairs. That single touch detonated the crowd. The elderly woman shouted, "Don't touch him." A chorus of voices rose in outrage, echoing against the stone walls. The live streamer yelled into his phone. "She just put hands on him. This is abuse, live." Isabella's face tightened, but she pressed forward, her voice like a whip. "You don't belong here, Marcus Reed," she sneered, spitting his name like it was poison. "Not in this bank. Not in my world." The words hung heavy. Even Tyler looked horrified, his tablet trembling in his hands. Julia's eyes burned, her voice breaking free. "Stop. He has every right to be here." The crowd roared in agreement, phones flashing, capturing every second. Isabella's authority, once untouchable, was now cracking under the weight of 100 witnesses. And Marcus, still unshaken, stood tall among the chaos, his silence louder than her rage. He didn't need to push back. She was destroying herself in front of everyone. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here. Marcus didn't shove her hand away. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he lifted the phone still in his grasp and spoke with deliberate clarity. "Initiate escalation protocol. Tag. Manager interference." The same calm female voice responded instantly. "Escalation logged. Internal audit triggered. Do you want live verification engaged?" "Yes," Marcus said. His tone wasn't angry. It was final. The crowd buzzed, voices colliding in disbelief. "What did he just say?" someone whispered. The live streamer zoomed closer, narrating breathlessly. "He's activating something like he has control inside the bank." His comments exploded. "He's too calm. He's someone important. This is bigger than it looks." Isabella stiffened, her confidence wobbling for the first time. "What is this nonsense? You think a call center is going to save you?" Her laughter cracked, brittle, forced. Marcus turned his head slightly, eyes never leaving hers. "No," he said evenly. "The truth will." At that moment, Tyler's tablet chimed. He fumbled, eyes darting across the screen. The system was updating fast. The name Marcus Reed blinked in, bold, flagged with an executive clearance level. Tyler swallowed hard, sweat rising at his temples. Julia stepped forward, her voice trembling but loud enough to carry. "It's there! His name! Marcus Reed! Executive access!" M. The words rippled through the crowd like electricity. Phones caught Julia's face, her courage breaking through fear. Gasps erupted, followed by angry murmurs. "They lied. We saw it." Isabella spun on her, fury blazing. "You stay silent, or you're finished." Her tone cracked like thunder, but Julia didn't flinch this time. She tightened her grip on the files in her arms and shook her head. "Not this time." Marcus lifted the phone again. "Confirm credentials," he instructed. The female voice answered, crisp and absolute. "Marcus Reed, CEO of Reed Holdings, primary shareholder, Crown National Bank, verified." The silence that followed was louder than any shout. Even the wind seemed to pause. The crowd froze, processing what they'd just heard. Then, almost in unison, voices erupted. "He's the owner? Wait, what? Oh my God!" She tried to throw out the CEO. Isabella's face drained of color, her lips parting but no sound escaping. For the first time, the heels, the smile, the power, all of it looked small. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't gloat. He simply looked at her, eyes calm, unshakable. "Now," he said, "we see whose world this really island." The reaction was instant, explosive. The crowd gasped, as if the air itself had been punched out of them. A man near the curb shouted, "He owns this bank." Phones tilted higher, voices overlapping, the scene turning into a storm of disbelief and vindication. Julia's face flushed with relief. She wasn't alone anymore, the truth was out, and the crowd had carried it. Tyler, pale and trembling, stared at the tablet in his hands as if it had betrayed him. "Executive access," he whispered, shaking his head. "It was there the whole time." Isabella staggered back a half step. Her heels, once so commanding, suddenly seemed unsteady on the stone stairs. "No," she muttered, eyes darting between Marcus and the watching crowd. This can't be." But the live streamer cut her denial to shreds. "You all heard it. CEO, owner. This woman just tried to have him cuffed in front of his own bank." His chat surged with fury. "Unreal. Fire her now. Accountability on camera." The elderly Latina pointed a trembling hand at Isabella. "Shame on you," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. Others echoed, a chorus of disapproval swelling louder with each second. Isabella turned on Tyler, desperation clawing through her mask of authority. "Say something! Fix this! Tell them it's wrong!" But Tyler's mouth worked soundlessly. His eyes avoided hers, landing instead on Marcus, the man who had been calm through every insult, every threat, every humiliation. Harris, the guard, lowered his hand from his belt. The authority in his stance drained, replaced by visible regret. He took a slow step back, muttering under his breath, "We almost cuffed the boss." Oh, phones caught everything. The smirk was gone. The charm was gone. Isabella's power wasn't just cracking, it was shattering in real time. Marcus finally lifted his chin, letting his gaze sweep across the gathered crowd. He didn't need to announce who he was again. The system had spoken. The witnesses had spoken. And Isabella's silence was the loudest proof of all. Julia stepped forward, voice trembling but fierce. "I saw his name this morning. I knew she was lying." "Huh?" The crowd erupted again, some cheering, others jeering Isabella openly. One man shouted, "You're finished!" Another, "How many others did you treat like this?" Isabella's face burned crimson. Her lips parted, but every word she tried to summon died in her throat. And Marcus, calm at the center of the storm, stood taller than ever. He hadn't raised a hand. He hadn't raised his voice. Yet the ground beneath Isabella's heels was crumbling, and the whole city would see it. The lie was gone. The mask was gone. And for Isabella Vance, the fall had only just begun. The noise of the crowd swelled, but Marcus's voice cut through it with surgical precision. Calm. Final. Terminate Isabella Vance. Effective immediately. The phone in his hand responded at once. Acknowledged. Access credentials revoked. Logging incident for board review. At that exact second, Isabella's bank badge clipped neatly to her blazer flashed red and buzzed. A faint electronic tone pierced the air. She looked down, stunned, then up again, as if the device had betrayed her. Gasps spread through the crowd. Did that just happen? Someone said. Another voice answered. She's locked out, right in front of us. Tyler dropped his gaze to the tablet in his hand. The screen blinked. Isabella's profile disappeared from the employee dashboard. He exhaled sharply, color draining from his face. Julia's eyes widened. Relief and awe blended together. She whispered, "It's over." "No, no," Isabella's voice cracked. She clawed at the badge, shaking her head violently. "This isn't real. He can't. He doesn't have that authority." But the live streamer shouted over her, his camera angled close. "You're watching this live. Her badge just got revoked. The CEO just fired her on the steps of her own branch." His comments flooded. "Justice in real time. No more hiding. This is history." The elderly woman lifted her chin, voice strong. "Dignity wins." "Oh." Harris and the second guard exchanged a look, then quietly stepped aside, their posture transformed from enforcers to bystanders. Harris muttered, "Orders don't come from her anymore." Isabella stumbled, words tumbling out without structure. "This is harassment. This is illegal. You'll regret this." Marcus's eyes stayed locked on hers, calm and unshakable. "What's illegal," he said evenly, "is trying to erase people you think don't belong. That ends today." Phones captured every angle. The crowd roared, some cheering, some laughing in disbelief. Tyler finally closed the tablet with a click, shoulders slumping in resignation. Julia stepped down one stair, standing closer to Marcus now, her courage no longer caged. "You did the right thing," she said softly, though the words carried further than she realized. Marcus didn't acknowledge the crowd, the cameras, or the chaos. His gaze remained fixed on Isabella, once powerful, now powerless, her authority stripped bare in front of strangers and screens. "Your tenure ends here," he said. "And unlike your words, mine are final." The sound of her badge hitting the stone as she tore it from her blazer was sharp, hollow, and irreversible. The badge clattered on stone, its echo swallowed by a wave of murmurs. Isabella's hands trembled as she stared at it, as if willing the plastic to glow green again. It didn't. The crowd's verdict came swift and merciless. "She's finished. That's justice." Phones lifted higher, capturing her collapse from every angle. Tyler, pale and sweating, finally lowered the tablet. His voice cracked as he whispered, "She told me to hide it. He stopped himself, shame pressing the words back down. His shoulders slumped, his career dissolving in the silence between syllables. Julia stepped forward, her voice clearer than it had been all morning. "She ordered us to erase his name. I saw it. I couldn't stay silent." The admission drew gasps, not of shock, but of vindication. The truth had weight now, undeniable, anchored by witnesses. Isabella snapped her head toward Julia, eyes blazing. "You little traitor." But the crowd shouted her down. "Leave her alone." She told the truth. The chorus was stronger than Isabella's fury, louder than her threats. Harris and the second guard no longer stood at her side. They shifted closer to Marcus, their posture quietly protective, as if realigning their loyalties. Harris muttered under his breath, "Never seen anything like this." Isabella's lips quivered, her mask of confidence gone. She turned back to Marcus, her words desperate now. "You can't just erase me. I've built this branch. I've given everything." Marcus's gaze was steady, unmoved. "You built it on arrogance, on exclusion, and everything built on lies eventually collapses." "Oh." The elderly woman near the curb lifted her voice, trembling but resolute. "We saw you. All of us. No one will forget this." The live streamer zoomed closer, his voice shaking with adrenaline. "You're watching the end of her career live. The CEO just stripped her authority in front of the whole city." His chat exploded. "She deserved it. Powerful moment. History right here." Tyler's knees nearly buckled. He looked at Marcus, his voice a rasp. "Am I fired too?" Marcus didn't answer yet. His silence was deliberate, heavy. Tyler's eyes welled with panic as he realized the decision would come in front of the same crowd that had watched Isabella fall. Julia's voice cut softly through the tension. "Whatever you decide, they'll see the truth. Finally." The crowd wasn't just watching anymore, they were participating, leaning closer, raising their phones higher, every lens pointed at the woman who had once believed she controlled the stage. And now, stripped of title, stripped of power, Isabella Vance stood small under a gray sky that seemed brighter only because she had lost. The air outside Crown National hung heavy, charged with a silence that no longer belonged to Isabella. All eyes were on Marcus. The crowd wasn't waiting for her next word. They were waiting for his. He stepped forward, calm as ever, gathering the eyes of strangers and employees alike. Tyler looked down at his shoes, sweat beading at his temple. Julia stood firm beside him, her hands tight on the files but her chin lifted in quiet defiance. Marcus raised the phone once more. Suspend Tyler Grant. Effective immediately. Record his compliance with fraudulent directives. Tyler's breath collapsed into a single word. Please. But his badge buzzed red before the plea could finish. Another gasp rolled through the crowd. The system was decisive. Then Marcus lowered the phone to his side. He looked at Julia, his expression softening for the first time. Stay, he said simply. Truth has a place here. Her eyes welled, and she nodded, relief trembling through her shoulders. Finally, he turned back to the gathering. Isabella stood in silence, stripped of her power, her badge on the stone like a discarded lie. The crowd surrounded her with judgment, but Marcus didn't linger on her defeat. His voice carried steady and low, cutting clean across the plaza. I don't need to shout. I don't need to beg. Justice doesn't need spectacle. It just needs to stand. The words landed like a verdict. Phones caught every syllable, every frame, the tall black man in a gray jacket, the so-called trespasser who revealed himself as the very owner of the institution that tried to erase him. Marcus Reed turned, climbing the steps at his own pace. The glass doors parted without resistance. He walked inside, not as a man denied, but as the one who defined who belonged. Behind him, the crowd erupted applause, shouts, voices lifted not just in awe, but in solidarity. And Isabella Vance was left in the cold light of day, her world undone by the truth she thought she controlled.